Episode 30 of the reading of Michael McCoy's Garden, 14th of December 1998. It's the strangest thing. Several years ago, I found myself meandering alone through a friend's predominantly rose garden in the peak of the season. Now, I'm not particularly fond of roses, but one caught my eye. It was foaming and tumbling down a high retaining wall and was a mass of small mauvey flowers in clusters. Intrigued by its form and colour, I pursued the name and found it was called Wiesnblau. I made a mental note that one day, when I had a garden of my own, from which roses would generally be excluded, I would allow Wiesnblau a place. In a quiet, almost subconscious way, Wiesnblau became symbolic of my own garden, and all the yearnings for my own place were somehow encapsulated in that one rose. When we moved into this house, there were many hybrid tea roses, mostly planted in inappropriate spots and uncared for, so they were discarded without a thought. There was, however, some rose foliage sticking out of a Photinia hedge in a spot I couldn't get at to dig, and a vigorous old thing which looked like the rootstock of some long-dead favourite growing hard against a fence. I almost dug out the rootstock, but it was helping cover an ugly bit of fence, so I hesitated. The number of flower buds it began to set convinced me long before flowering time that this was no rootstock. Somehow, before it even flowered, I knew it was my rose, Wiesnblau. Of all the sickly, crappy, or otherwise fine but undesirable roses it might have been, it was a spectacular flowering and right near Lavatera maritima, whose colour matched it exactly. A further accident. It's flowering again now, probably twice the size it was last year. The Lavatera never really recovered from the frost, but the rose has thrown itself over a golden privet, also retained for fence disguise, and round a very tall green-yellow poker, Nephophia lime glow, nearby, which makes quite a combination, totally unplanned, as is so often the case with the best combinations. And the other rose, looking weak and wan in the hedge, is Aeneas sagalis, with well-formed flowers of a heavy fragrance. It is, unfortunately, pink, but fades quickly to reveal an extraordinary amount of blue. I've often heard colourists describing some pinks as having a lot of blue in them, but try as I might and stare as I might, I couldn't see the blue at all. If you've done the same thing, check out Aeneas sagalis. The blue sticks out a mile. This might be a good point at which to state that I don't believe that I have any prejudice against roses, though I accept that I'm not the best judge of that, as blindness to prejudice is almost essential to its survival. But the rose lovers that accuse me of outrageous prejudice are not the best judges either. The fact is, I judge all flowering shrubs just as harshly. I'm at a point, ever shifting, in my gardening where I don't rely on shrubs for their flowering at all. If I choose a shrub, I do so almost entirely for some quality of foliage, or even more so because of some quality of form that they contribute to the garden structure year-round. And it's on this basis that I occasionally cannot avoid using roses. In designing gardens for others, I often find myself wanting to emphasise strongly the vertical line, with either fastigiate trees or shrubs, or clipped specimens, and the strict horizontal line with either water or totally prostrate plants. In between these strong forms, or at least in contrast with them, I frequently need a shrub which splays out in all directions in long, arching canes, introducing a fountain-like dynamism which the other forms lack. It's surprising and vexing to find how few shrubs are of this form. Some of the old roses are the best of all. The only other things that immediately spring to mind are plumbago, no good in my frost-blighted spot, and some of the spireas, such as Spirea cantoniensis and Spirea thunbergii. Isn't it just incredible? I mean, I still can't get around the amazing good fortune, the incredible blessing it was to move into this old kind of nana garden, most of which was abounding in plants that I didn't want at all, just, dug out and threw away without a thought. And that one rose, which I thought, oh, look, I'll wait and see what it is before I chuck it, happens to be the very rose, the only rose I'd ever thought that I really wanted to grow. The chances of this are so crazily small. And to this day, I'm just so touched by the blessing of that. I'm sure you've got stories similarly. Just gardening seems full of them. These just beautiful moments of some alignment of the planets that really tugs at our heartstrings and adds such an amazing dimension to otherwise this pure hobby, that it's so much more than that. It rewards us in so many rich and diverse ways. Join me tomorrow for the next reading of Michael McCoy's Garden.